Welcome to Mentoring Moments. Mentoring Moments is a sub-series of the E-commerce Edge podcast. It is composed of clips taken from Jason's one-to-one and group mentorship sessions. Mr. Brooke Llewellyn Shepard from Mason Interactive, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. We were talking off air that not only did I have another person from New York this morning on the podcast, but they were mentioning this morning that it was like 80, 85 degrees today in New York City, which is wild for this time of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's usually, I think it's like 20 degrees above normal for this time of the year. Yeah, it's a bit much.
But we're not complaining. It's beautiful springtime weather.
Yeah, the plants don't know what to do. The squirrels don't know what to do. The rats are confused.
It's good. Confusing the rats is a good thing, right? Let them fend for themselves. But we're recording here on the 16th of April, and it's obviously early spring for New York. Long may it continue, right? Bring on global warming.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Listen, I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you today. Why don't you tell us how you came to be in this wonderful world of digital? You've been the CEO, managing partner, Mason Interactive for nearly 20 years, over 17 years now, performance marketing agency based in New York, offices in New York, Charlotte, and NC, North Carolina. And you've got a mid-sized team, privately owned, not a public company, just doing your thing. But you do come from a background of digital and e-com. But what drew you into this industry in the first place? What excited you about it and caused you to want to be in it?
I always wanted to work in advertising. And I had an itinerant early career where I worked on Wall Street, which is what people do when they graduate from where I went to school at the time I did. And I didn't enjoy that job. And I always wanted to work in advertising, but I never had planned for it. I studied art in school and painting, and I had never planned on anything really career-wise. So I found it really hard to get a job in advertising when I decided I wanted to do it. And I was lucky enough to have an agency in Long Island. It was a really entrepreneurial place with a really entrepreneurial spirit. Take a gamble on me. And I think I brought something to the table during the interview, but they took a gamble on me to hire me. And it was called Send Traffic. It was one of the very first search engine marketing firms. And that was like 20 years ago. And so before that, I was doing like SEO work for people on my own and doing some internet sales. The first like agency I worked at was Send Traffic, where I was really just lucky enough to be hired by an entrepreneurial group of swashbuckling pirates.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And it's interesting because back in those days, and I make it sound like it was 100 years ago, wasn't 100 years ago, but early 2000s, the reality, those of us that came, like I came into the industry 26 years ago, and it was definitely a little bit of the Wild West when I started out. I was living in New Zealand at the time, lived in New Zealand for almost 30 years after moving there from California in my early 20s. And the agency that I ultimately ended up going to work for, it was headed by an American who had married a Kiwi and started an agency in New Zealand. And we got introduced by a mutual friend, and I had no direct experience in the industry. Of course, I was using the internet. Back in the day, we were using ICQ, and it was just everything was early. Everything was early. Everything was hard. Everything to do with e-commerce was hard. There was nothing easy about it. It was all Google obviously was already starting to make its mark, and everybody was trying to build everything specifically
I
to
had
make.
Overture first.
Yeah,
Remember
Overture
Overture?
first. Yeah, absolutely. Remember Overture. Remember everybody trying to build things that would keep the search engines happy and keep you on their radar, and black hat SEO, white hat SEO, and everything in between. It was a wild time, and I distinctly remember feeling like I was at the beginning of a revolution. I didn't know exactly what that revolution would turn out to look like, but I definitely felt like I was on the ground floor of something massive because I knew that the internet would change everything forever. I just didn't know exactly how. I like at that time, and very soon after I started at that agency, then my friend and I started a side hustle e-commerce business online. We ran it together, and eventually it grew to the point where I was able to quit, and I ran that business full time with my business partner. But it definitely, we were all figuring it out as we went along. There was nobody, even the people that said they were experts, they weren't experts. Like none of us were experts.
The field was 3 years old. The field was 6 months old. It was, yeah.
Exactly. And none of us were experts. We just had the gumption to put our nose to the grindstone and figure it out and work it out and adapt and change and be flexible along the way. And it's so interesting to meet people of our vintage now because we especially those of us that have stayed in the industry for the duration, who didn't jump out, get back in again, all that sort of stuff. Those of us that just literally stayed in the industry the whole time, through the good, the bad, the ups and the downs, the good, the bad, the ugly, it was a really special time to be in tech. And I think it was such an interesting time because everybody was starting to dabble in this internet thing, and it felt like this black box of knowledge, human knowledge, that it was like, how is this all connecting together? How are we this hive mind of humanity is what it started to feel like, is actually what it felt like. And did you get the sense really early on that we were on the cusp of something really life altering as humanity in those early days?
I want to circle back into something you said there, Jason, before I get to D. Did I feel like I was in the cusp of it? We used to make everyone who started here at Mason's John Battel's The Search, because in that book, he talks about, even if parts of it are outdated, he talks about how Google is a database of human intentions. If you were an alien race and you wanted to know what humanity actually thought, you would look at the queries in Google's database for what people are looking for. People don't go to Instagram and say, how do I remove this blemish? Maybe they do now a little bit with TikTok, but they don't go to Instagram and say, what is this wart? Whereas Google is going to add every single dark, disgusting secret everyone has. They talk about it being a black box. And when I think about it, it's database of intentions, but they amount to the same thing. When I started doing my job at Send Traffic, did I feel like I was in the cusp of something? No, because I felt like it had already started. I feel like I remember getting my first laptop in high school. So we're talking like 89, 91,
Yep.
and it was kludgy. And getting AOL Instant Messenger,
Yep.
and being able to talk to people elsewhere. And then I don't know, I remember when Skype came along, but it wasn't long after.
Yep.
So I felt like that was earth changing. And then when I was in college, Google wasn't really a thing. So we were using Yahoo and Seven Search and Ask Jeeves. And I remember thinking there'd be a new economy built on this. I got a job before I started the agency. I had a job at CBS Market Watch, which was CBS's first play into digital. And my job was to help coordinate some of the internet parts of that Sunday afternoon TV show. So I'd already felt like I was in it by that point, which is not denigrating your experience or mine. But the time I was at the agency with hands on keyboard, I'd already been like immersed in the world of, how is this video going to get translated to the internet? Oh, look at this new magazine that just blew up the Palm Beach Post. Yeah.
And I remember one of the first apps that really started to change my mind about how far this internet thing could go was a little app called Net to Phone. And it was super popular, especially for expats who had moved outside of the US to foreign countries, and using the local telephone service to call home was $1, $2, $3 a minute. Whereas Net to Phone, you had a little digital wallet, you could load it up with a credit from your credit card, and it ended up being like $1, $2, $3 a minute to call all around the world. It was early VoIP is exactly what it was. And I remember using that, and I remember thinking, this is a little clunky, it's a little unstable, but this is just a hint at what is to come in terms of all comms going through the internet. And I thought, geez, this is eventually gonna, I even thought then, because there were still PABXs for offices, physical PABXs for offices at that point. And I remember thinking at that time, why can't businesses use this? Why can't businesses use this and do everything over the internet, communications wise? And now that's kind of where we are. We don't.
Yeah, we're in the same place now, though. We're in the same place. So I had a call yesterday with, I want to be careful how I talk about this, but I had a call yesterday with the programmatics partner that we use at our agency.
Yep.
And I said, listen, it's non-negotiable for us to renew our contract. I need API connectivity to your platform.
Yep.
And they said, we built out our own system. It already does all this stuff. And I said, that's great. But I have a business problem, which is that my staff has too many places to look. I need to centralize it. I need one place that we own. I need an API connection. And they said, you cannot be able to build it. I mean, what if we gave you the API? And it struck me as funny, just because, like, I was talking to 2 or 3 engineers who are probably people that are a little, at this moment in April 26th, they're probably a little nervous for the jobs, and they're probably gatekeeping a little bit. But they seemed like they were actually unaware. And it's not as easy as they make it sound. It's not, you go to Claude, write a voice prompt, and do it.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work and a lot of diligence and a lot of intelligence and a lot of stick-to-itiveness. Really? You don't think I can build a visualization of your data with it? So I think we're in the same place. It's who's going to back then it was who's going to refuse to use a computer or Microsoft.
Yeah.
And then it became who's going to refuse to build a website. And now it's who's going to refuse to use these AI tools. Are you just going to die in the hill of obsolescence? It feels like a similar shift now.
And I think there just now as then, there were certain people that saw the world moving a little bit earlier than everybody else. And just like you had your must-read book, I was consuming everything from Avinash Kaushik at that time, consuming everything he was putting out, from Occam's Razor to Analytics 2.0 to everything he wrote. Every time he spoke, I was hanging on every word, because it felt like, even though I wasn't specifically in the digital marketing space, I was tangentially, but latterly, I was working for e-commerce development agencies where we're actually building e-commerce websites,
right.
and we weren't focusing so much on digital marketing services as we were getting the infrastructure up and running for clients. But it's just so interesting. There are always these voices in the wilderness, so to speak, who are able to recognize patterns just a little bit earlier than everybody else. And I'd like to think that people like you and me now, we can recognize some trends a little bit earlier because we've seen this pattern. For example, like the AI pattern, we saw it play out with mobile. We saw it play out with social. We've seen these massive quantum shifts of the way that.
Let me put a pause there for you, because you just skipped over something that I happen to agree with you on.
Yeah.
But I don't think most people would. You said AI, internet, mobile, or maybe I got those orders.
Yeah.
I think most people would say metaverse and crypto in there. And those to me didn't feel as big as this.
Oh, totally
this
agree.
feels as big as the internet did.
Yes.
5 years ago, everyone was telling you have to get more crypto, you have to get more crypto. And 3 years ago, everyone was saying you have to get more meta. And I like the fact you skipped over them, because they don't feel, and I understand how important crypto is and then blockchain technologies, but it didn't feel as seismic as this. This feels as big as the internet. This feels really big.
Yeah, and look, Web3 felt more amorphous. Blockchain felt more amorphous. I got torched in the FTX thing going tits up, even though I'd made the right choices in foundational L1 blockchains and everything else, and still lost my ass because, of course, of all that crap with FTX. So the reality is we can be right, directionally right, but in the moment wrong in the short term, in the long term. And I think it's just so interesting how even Meta now, its name feels totally wrong. Meta feels totally
Just
wrong.
ridiculous.
And they're taking all those billions of dollars that they were pouring into the metaverse, and now they're pouring it into AI instead. So it's such an interesting thing to watch these peaks and the troughs and the early adopters and the tech Luddites and everything else. It's just interesting to see these patterns just play out over and over again. And of course, you and I were smack in the middle of the dot-com boom and bust as well. So we've seen the hype train get ahead of itself, but then ultimately the world catch up, right? So the hype train was real. It was a big deal during the dot-com boom and bust. But the reality is all the infrastructure that ultimately got built during the dot-com boom, it ultimately ended up getting used. But it was just like 5-6 years later that people started to realize, oh my God, this thing is actually as transformational as we were led to believe 5 years ago. Okay, cool. Now we're going to build the backbone of real businesses on this thing. I feel like we're in that similar frothy boom time right now with AI. It feels very similar.
Except more bro-y in a bad way. It's a story elsewhere. The person, the hands-on keyboard person, it takes a village, and I was just part of it. But I am a person with hands-on keyboard on Google and Yahoo and Bing, because there was no Facebook and Meta then. When ITG Technical Institute, which people in the United States will know was an online college, managed their advertising from literally $1,000 a month to $2 million a month. And I was good at my job. And it was smart. A lot of it was luck because of where I was in time, because a lot of the ability to do that was created by the Clinton-Gore administration laying broadband internet to revitalize rural communities 10 years earlier or 5 years earlier. And that was just, the pipelines were just laying there dormant. And one thing that happened was people said, I live in a small town. This feels a little different. Like,
yeah, I know, ridiculous. I've been writing about the failure of Allbirds for several years now in anticipation of this very moment. And it's just crazy. I know, isn't it wild?
It's a little different.
Isn't it wild? Isn't it wild?
Because it wasn't so hard to see how, I remember, was it pets.com? What company? Some company called themselves .com, and then their email was like, my URL, dotcom.com. It's not such a crazy thing to say, I sell shoes, and now I'm going to sell shoes on the internet. Like, that's not a crazy idea. Or I sell shoes, and now I'm going to have a website I have a TV network, TVS, and I want to get more focused in the finance part of it. And the FTC won't let me have another channel. So I'm going to develop an internet site where we stream content. Like that doesn't seem like we were at the beginning of that. It was
Yes.
crazy. You're trying to explain to our parents what we did, but it doesn't seem like a giant thing.
Yes.
Me coding what I've been coding recently seems like a big step. And it seems broier in that I'm watching all of my competition, which everyone in the agency space is heavily levered into AI. You have to be ahead of the clients by 2 or 3 years, or you'll get left behind.
Totally.
You have to be, I'm not saying sharper or smarter, but you have to be ahead of the curve. Or else you don't have value. And, we're all heavily leveraging these things, but now we all have to talk about it. Like the website needs to say AI enabled or AI first or the original AI first. It's like a gloss of paint. And I find we're doing it too, but I find it a little bit like, really? We all need to say, like, it's not obvious that we're using AI. We have to trumpet it as well. But yeah, we have to trumpet it.
Yeah. And look, I think you hit the nail on the head there, which is just for me as a consultant now, having run and built agencies before, and now being an independent consultant for the last 6 years, I have to stay just that one step ahead of where of all the things my clients can do directly with AI themselves. And I'm injecting AI into my delivery processes in massive ways to automate a lot of the grunt work that I used to do manually myself. Now I can inject AI into those processes, make me more efficient, thereby making my delivery for my clients more efficient, thereby instead of maybe requiring a 6-month engagement, now they can bring it down to a 3-month engagement and get just as much value out of that 3-month engagement. AI is never going to have my 26 years and your 20 plus years of experience. It's never going to have that. It's in my head. It's not an AI anywhere. And so that being able to connect those dots between those previous patterns and what's happening today, and being able to see where those new technologies fit in old businesses to help modernize them, that's a skill. That's a gift.
What we're building here at Mason is something most people couldn't build, because you need to understand how these platforms work together. You need to have a working knowledge of how Shopify attribution is different than Google. And you need to have some knowledge of this. I couldn't go into it cold.
Yes,
so it couldn't be
totally.
replaced. What I do worry about a lot for society is I don't see any way in which there's not at least a 50% chance that 20 to 30% of white collar jobs are vaporized in the next 2 to 3 years.
100%, 100%. And I think the bigger challenge is that the environment that you and I came into, and the opportunity to learn from the ground floor,
it's not going to be given to us. The reason I can do my job is
there's no roles like we had when we started.
Right. The company I worked at, Send Traffic, had this proprietary software. It was a great domain name. It was Marketing Dashboard. And it was part of how it was valued when they sold it ultimately. And it was a marketing platform that connected dots between different places. It was like a proto whale. And I would look at that all day long. I would look at it with such intensity.
Yes.
No.
Correct. Yeah. You have to go. I mean, there is upside and downside to that. I think that the opportunity to build something, create a portfolio, learn on your own dime, learn on your own time, I think that is now more open than ever before. But man, does it require some serious personal initiative to make that happen. Like I've built stuff with Lovable. I'm building stuff with Claude Code. I'm working with Manus. I'm in this stuff every day. I'm as excited about our industry today as I was 26 years ago.
What do you think about Manus?
I love it more than I ever thought I was going to like it. And it makes me so sad that Meta bought them, and I just hope they don't ruin it. That's all I think.
I only use Manus in Meta, so that's my knowledge base for it.
Okay, so I use Manus exclusively outside of Meta and as a general agent. And the amount of stuff that I can get it to do and to create repetitive automations inside Manus, especially when you need to connect to MCP servers and you need to connect to other systems and bring data in, it's pretty impressive. It is pretty impressive. As it is like a general agent, a general purpose agent. It is very good.
I have Claude Code running in the background.
Yes.
And then the threat there.
Yeah.
I have separately Claude instance set up. We have so many Claude instances set up. And I have a Claude instance set up that is connected to my Monday boards.
Yes.
For task management, my Slack channels, and as the administrator of the Slack channels at Mason, I have access to them. My email is going back into perpetuity, and our drive.
Yes.
So it has access to everything I need. And I'm smelling that this client is, it's more sophisticated, but I'm smelling this client is having some cold feet. Please investigate all the activities that we've done in task in Monday in the last month, stack it against the SOW, see if we're active enough in the Slack channel. I can pull it. This is not rocket science, but
Yes.
I pulled it all together and I can get a report that says it'll have some flaws. I don't think most people are doing that. I think most people think they're using AI really well when they're taking emails from their bosses, pasting it into, and then pasting it back to hit send.
Yeah.
I think that's the way most people think. That they're like, I was a great power user. I copy and paste into chat.
Yeah.
And I'm not a power user, but it's interesting. I don't think people are adopting it the way they think they're adopting it.
Yeah. And for me, like I'm building basic, simple apps in Claude Code to automate things, which is really cool. That basically creating desktop apps for me to automate things in my business. In Manus, I am allowing Manus to connect to the Read AI MCP server, so it can pull down information specifically from all the remote discovery workshops I'm doing on a specific client project. I allow it to connect to my Google Workspace, pull down collateral of the questionnaires and things from my clients, and then do a gap analysis between that and a first draft BRD that I'm drafting, for example, on behalf of a client. It can do, and it might be 450 pages literally of transcripts. My latest project, it was 475 or 476 pages of transcripts that in the span of 5 minutes, I was able to point it at all the source material and say, run a gap analysis between this first draft and all the source material and help me identify, because I used to have to, pre-AI, I used to have to go back through and re-review those videos myself to make sure that nothing important got missed along the way and do all that, basically do a junior analyst job myself. And now
those jobs weren't, but the jobs that the reason that you and I are capable of doing that is because we did the grunt work 20, 25 years ago.
100%.
And yeah.
And so that there is definitely a little bit of a scary part there, but certainly this is, and I think I would think we would be considered maybe not like superpower users, but I think the fact that we're doing these things and thinking about ways in which I'm trying to always have an AI first mindset, if nothing else, and think, okay, can I use AI in some smart way alongside my knowledge and my experience to make this better for me, my business, and my clients' businesses? And I'm constantly in my mind. And I would assume it's exactly the same for you.
For me, it's exactly the same. I also don't want to be the only independent. I don't think I would be, because I think I'm ahead of the curve a little bit, but I don't want to be the only independent agency that's fewer than 100 people that hasn't built an AI solution. Like we have a real advantage of, because the debate over should I do it in-house or not has raged forever. And I don't think most people realize how slim the profit margins are in agencies. I don't think people realize there's not a lot of savings in doing it in-house, and the results are almost always going to be worse. Not that there aren't some benefits, but it's not usually better. But it can't be the agency that's not doing AI. And a serious advantage I have over anyone doing it in-house is we have 60 clients, and we've got over $1 billion of assets managed. So we have data trend that no client has.
Yes.
By the way, American Express says that. No independent, no university,
small, no SMB client, for example, is going to have access to that amount of data.
And so we can use that, and we can leverage in a privacy first way, in a secure server, a client's historical data against what we've seen trends wise, and say, this is how you're different. This is where you're beating them, and there's where you can learn to do a little better. So I think that is an advantage. Talking to clients about that is difficult. I'm not sure they're all going to want to hear it, but we have to be leveraging these things, because what am I learn how to code with Claude? But it's tough. It's not as easy as they say it is.
Exactly, or Lovable, or any of those. Like they're not. But I think what it does is it empowers those of us that are very technical, non-coders. I've run software projects for many years, worked in dev agencies, built dev agencies. So I know what the full software development lifecycle. I'm a solution architect. So I've written all the spec docs and API docs and everything else. So I know I don't write the code, but I understand everything that goes behind writing the code. And so I think the thing about AI that's really exciting is it is empowering people like us, despite the fact that we are not coders, to create new things in the world that we would like to see in the world that historically we might not have done, because even with a dev team out of India and just a POC might have cost 15 grand and 6 weeks worth of sprints, right?
I asked 2 years ago, I want to be careful I talk about this. 2 years ago, I asked a trusted dev resource that we use to say, all right, all of our reports, and have been for years, automated. All of our reports are automated and have been for years. by our reporting team, our data engineer out of Charlotte. Take these reports, here's a prompt, and give me a rough draft of a client agenda for the meeting so the account executive knows what to do. I won't tell you what I spent on it and how long it took. It didn't really work.
Yeah.
Right? Like they couldn't, even though they were full-time developers who work at an agency, they couldn't make it work. I didn't make it work.
Yes.
And automated the process by ingesting from API data from different platforms, aggregating it in one central warehouse, running it through scripts that I've created.
Correct. It is so exciting. It is, again, this is renewed. Not that I ever didn't like our industry, but certainly there was.
Yeah, it's more fun now.
It's more fun now. It's certainly to not have this intense reliance on development teams for absolutely everything, to feel like you're held
gatekeep.
Like you're held hostage to a degree, right? At least for small things and POCs and stuff like that. Like at least you can do all that stuff yourself, and you can run some market tests, and you can. There's just so much more we can do ourselves, sans gatekeepers, and at very low cost, maybe $1,000's worth of tokens. If that, it's just wild. It is a wild time to be alive. It is fun, and I think what's ultimately going to happen, and I'd love your take on this. So I don't know if you remember, but back in the day when I was in agency land and I was hiring new employees to work in the agency, we would get CVs in that said, I am like one of their qualities as an employee were that they were an expert Googler, right? Now that sounds insane to say now. Oh, somebody was an expert Googler, and they would actually put that on a CV. Back then, having the ability to find information on the internet via Google, there was a little bit of skill to that.
Well, I didn't follow what that meant. Okay, people said that they're Googler, meaning they could
Google really well and get information really well. And I remember people used to put that on their CVs. Now, that would be just as insane to put on a CV today as, I think, give it 12 more months and putting I'm an expert AI prompt engineer on a CV. I think it will be just as crazy to say that. But you remember 3 years ago when ChatGPT went mainstream, people were saying, oh, I'm an expert prompt engineer. And they would release handbooks. They would release guides and training programs about prompt engineering.
I believe you. I wasn't in that world. I didn't see that. I had a specific problem when ChatGPT came out in broad usage, which was different.
Yes.
And that was, and it's changing so quickly, that was clients demanding that we not use it.
Wow.
And other clients demanding that we do use it.
Yeah, so you can be efficient for them.
Or are people saying, what do I need you for? I can do content of my own now. And the content that stuff produces is not good. I was consumed with trying to put in place processes internally to stop people from cheating. And I had this problem where I had these junior people who were thinking that I didn't know that they had outsourced their entire logic process to chat. And I can read English. I know what M dashes are. And so,
yes.
And I know when people start using emojis in the middle of their sentences, and I didn't use them yesterday, something's going on. So my focus was in trying to write the culture at the company. And I'm not sure I did as well as I could have, but I think I did okay to write the culture to be like, we have to be AI first. It doesn't mean we outsource our humanity and our intelligence to the robot. Stop copying and pasting. I could tell that you didn't think about it.
Yes.
So that was where I was at with that. But people were saying that they were master prompt engineers and pushing out books about that.
I'm an expert prompt engineer, and they were releasing courses and guides to prompt engineering in large language models, primarily ChatGPT, and they would release an entire prompt guide where you could.
God bless them.
Yeah, and I know several people that made a huge amount of money in that first sort of 2 years once ChatGPT was made publicly available.
I have two things about that. I remember when I was at SendTraffic, one of those first search engine marketing agencies, and I was lucky enough to be there. I remember getting an email from someone. We were in Rockville Center, Long Island. And I remember getting an email from someone who was like a billboard salesman. And he might've been younger than you and I are now.
Yeah.
And I remember sending out an email saying, help, my business is drying up. I just someone give me a chance. I know how to place billboards, meaning like on the highway.
Yes.
Digital. God bless him. I hope that's never me. Like there by the grace of God that I'm not going to get left behind.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be the guy that's emailing younger people saying, could you please let me buy your internet clicks for you? Is my main thought there about that. Yeah. We just have to stay ahead of the curve and think about it a lot, or we're going to be left behind. We don't get a choice.
Yeah, 100%. And I tell you, I have more demand for my services now than I ever have. I have more demand for my knowledge and experience now than I ever have. I'm pushing the boundaries of what I can do. I'm pushing the boundaries of what my clients can do. Like we're really, my clients, at least for now, maybe not forever, but at least for now, they see massive value in people like us when they can leverage us to skip the 10,000 hour rule, right? Whether that's AI, whether that's e-commerce, whether it's SEO, whether it's B2B e-commerce, which is the space I play in now, like it doesn't matter. If they have someone that can help them jump the queue, so to speak, and help them accelerate time to value radically, then that is the arbitrage of value that we're capturing, right?
Or helping. That's you're often at a client's mercy, but yeah,
we still have businesses, and the reality is that like I will have I've only been running this particular iteration of my independent consultancy for 6 years, and this will be my best year in 6 years. And everybody's saying, "Oh, the economy's crapping itself, and AI is going to replace you."
Well, the economy is a little rough. I was in London seeing clients a month ago. The first client I went to, who I'd known for a few years, who was very polite about this, as the British are, and said very intelligently to me, because it's about what you're saying, said to me, "I think we're going to take this part of the business in-house."
Mm-hmm.
They were not a big client. They were fun to work with. I liked them. We didn't do a bad job. They said it was a friendly divorce. And they said, we're going to take this business in-house because we hired a US agency to handle the US part of our business. And you're not doing any better or worse than the UK part of the business.
Okay.
When we're up 10%, you're up 10%. When we're down 20%, you're down 20%, and vice versa. What I said to them was, in a polite way, and a good discussion, was, right, because you've told us what to do every step of the way and not taken our advice. We've been part of growing more brands than any one client has ever been. And there are different cases where maybe someone has been through a lot. We've seen so many growth stories over the years. I said it nicely, and I said it nicer than this and more calmly, but it was like, of course we're tracking to how your global portfolio is tracking, because you've told us at every turn to turn down. You haven't let us drive strategy at all. You've made us just click the button you wanted us to click.
An order taker. You've turned us into an order taker, right?
And that's a reality. That happens. That happens. That people decide that they don't like your strategy, so do what I say. Oh, by the way, why is it working like it did before?
Because you're getting the same inputs. It's getting the same inputs that it had before. So you're going to get the same outputs. For you as a performance, how do you see LLMs starting to either help or hurt your business? How do you start to think about these new buying surfaces, these new shopping surfaces, these new discovery surfaces? How does this start to move from SEO to GEO to, I know for me, for example, that I am performing wildly well in the LLMs in my vertical, because I always was trying to write for humans. And it feels like we spent so much time writing for the machine for so long that this long narrative type information on websites went away in favor of very short, query-based, in-demand query-based content that seemed like it was written for the machine, right? And so I think a lot of brands forgot how to sound human, right, in a lot of their content, because they were writing it for so long for the search engines, that now that we have these context windows in the LLM that are massive and they're conversational in nature, and we can use natural human language instead of this stilted 1, 2, 3 word query language. How are you starting to tackle that and to re-energize your clients with the passion for narrative, for storytelling, for brand building in a way that makes sense in a large context model world?
Yeah, my SEO team, which of course we have to relabel to be our AIO team, Jenna, who runs that team, I've been lucky enough to work with Jenna for 16 years, 15 years. Jenna speaks about this with much better intelligence than I do. And her point of view is what you said. I'm paraphrasing her and you, and I'm dumbing it down, bust you down a little bit. She'll say it hasn't really changed that much. If you had good quality content before and people were coming to your website, you're going to have good quality content now. Just doing more discovery in the LLMs before they get to your website. And what we can see globally across the portfolio, and everyone's different, is that web organic sessions are down, something like 30% year over year. Conversions aren't down and leads aren't down, which means if you use logic, it means that they're coming to your website better informed because they've done the research on the LLM. So that's specifically the answer about the SEO part of it. For the operations side of it, we gave a creative director and I, who's outside filming, doing shoots in there. We gave a speech at a university a month ago, and he was saying, Mike Melia, the creative director here, was saying that in the world of AI, to these college undergraduates, your superpower is a liberal arts degree, because the ability to reason, and by the way, it could be a computer engineering degree, but anything where you're learning to reason through things, as opposed to repeat facts, is the key. And it was interesting because he showed a bunch of ads that he made for hotels, luxury hotels, and fashion brands and ads other people made with AI. And then the question and answers at the end of the session were, cool, but what did you use specifically to make that Amman Hotels ad? And Mike's a nice guy, so he answered them. And then, but I had to say, no, you're missing the point. It doesn't matter that he used Nano Banana for that.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't have used it 6 months ago, and he's not going to use it in 6 more months.
Yes.
It's much more important that we can think critically through which software application we want to use given our available tools. So we're so heavily into all these LLMs. We use them all for different things.
Yes.
But for getting our clients to show up, it's the same game as.
And I think there's no accounting for taste in the sense that you still have to be able to know when and how far. And that's probably my bigger worry, is that people who have 20 plus years of experience in anything obviously are going to be critical thinkers. They've had to be critical thinkers at some point in their career to get to where they are. And so I do worry about an AI only or an AI first generation who comes out of university. It's like the first generation that came out, the first internet enabled generation that graduated from university having had their whole life with access to the internet. That was a different generation, right? It produced a different.
This feels bigger though.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Like I didn't have a cell phone until I was in college. My son had a cell phone when he was 10 because we live in New York City and we wanted to be able to let him get to, it's how he got on the trains. It's how we could track him. It's how he could get into his high school and his middle school. And so that's different growing up with a cell phone.
Yes.
Than what you and I grew up with. No cell phones. Cable TV happened when we were 6 or 7 or 5 years old.
Yep.
Something like that. But this feels bigger than that. The idea that you can make anything you want. The great hope is that it democratizes ideas.
Yes.
And I realize that a MacBook Pro and being able to afford more credits in Claude is better than a Chromebook, and you can't afford as many credits. I understand that.
Yeah.
But really, anyone can build anything they want right now, and that has been democratized. So
yes,
that's the great hope.
Yeah, the only thing, so I'm equally bullish. Then I live in that tension of massive positivity and excitement, tempered with some very serious concerns about lots of concerns about AI. But I think it's incumbent upon us who have seen massive technical revolutions in our short life to help guide this in a positive direction, right? For kids and for the people that come after us. We don't have kids, my wife and I, but I try to work with as many young people as I can, and I try to mentor, I try to guide and help and support every way that I can. And I think that doubling down on your humanity and the stuff that makes you human is actually the cheat code. Now, I think, yes, you have to know AI, you'll learn it, and you'll be exposed to it, and you'll be an expert at it just by definition of exposure. You're gonna be exposed to it. It's kind of like being exposed to Google, right? You're gonna be exposed to mobile. You're gonna be exposed to that. You're gonna be an expert in that. That's gonna be as normal as breathing to you. So if beyond that, and that doesn't become a differentiator anymore, because everybody knows how to use a cell phone, everybody knows how to use mobile, everybody knows how to use social media. So that's not a game-changing.
You think everyone's going to learn how to use these softwares to make things? I think everyone can. You think they're going to?
I think there were lots and lots of people who said this will never, ever rule my life. And it's never more than 6 inches away from their body 24/7, 365 now. And there were people that say, oh, I don't want to give up my privacy. I want to maintain a private life. But yet this knows more about them than they know about themselves.
Okay, so I'm not arguing with you. Let's talk about this for a second. This phone is primarily it's a push and a pull device, but the people that are really addicted to it are using it to pull things from TikTok and Google. Mm-hmm. They're passively consuming things from it. Mm-hmm. It's very good at delivering what you want to have delivered to you, right? And I know you can.
It's good at that.
It's free at that. And so there's a lot of money to be made from things like, let me give you a thing that makes you feel better when I push it to you, whether that's a like for dopamine hit, or it's a video game that I play when I'm waiting for the train. But you can be a passive consumer and get joy from this. You think that a passive consumer is going to get joy from using LLMs to create things?
What's interesting is now, so 2 years ago, about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, I went cold turkey off of Google search and redirected all my Omnibox queries to ChatGPT. Now I've moved on to Gemini and a few others since then, but I knew that I would never make the clean break needed. I would never get into AI as deeply as I needed to really understand it and use it and become really good at it if I didn't go cold turkey. So I just stopped using Google search, and immediately 100% of my web work started going through LLMs. That was about 2 years ago. And on my phone, I've got Gemini on my phone. I've got everything on my phone now as well. And so I don't use standard web searches ever for anything. It's all going through LLMs now. And there's a sycophantic element to most of these LLMs that gives you that similar dopamine hit to
Great idea.
to doom scrolling, right? So in other words, it tells you what you want to hear in many respects because it gets to know you in many respects because after so many interactions, it gets to know what kind of answers you're looking for and gets you to stop querying faster and quit using tokens faster. And I think that's similar. I think so you and I seem pretty happy, right? So I'm thrilled. I love my wife. I have a great life here in Mexico. Love it. I think we're underestimating how many lonely people are in the world. And I think that with a combination of LLMs, robotics, synthetic personalities, I think this is going to be used to fill gaps that are very dangerous. I think you remember the movie Her?
I didn't see it, but I noticed about it.
So go and watch that movie because I think that is where a significant portion of society is headed, particularly young males. And I think that's the bigger risk. I think it's the total upheaval of the way that society operates and men just completely opting out of social interactions with human beings. That's the biggest risk, I think.
I think the biggest risk is killer robots, but I will accept
sure,
that that's the second biggest risk.
Yes.
I will accept that that's the second biggest risk. I hadn't thought about it that way. I think you're onto something. I just think fundamentally these things aren't as user-friendly as a video game is trying to get you to jump over a cart to collect coins.
Yes.
Which you can do drunk or mindlessly or between calls. I think these things require a lot of intelligence and application and getting things wrong because they can't architect things well so far. They can do again, run in the background. I've got a remarkably complex modal that's looking across 4 databases that's going to render to set budgets and pacings for clients. And I could never program that, but it's going to break when I launch it. And I'm going to have to figure out why it broke and which database is not querying correctly. And it's going to take 5 hours. It's going to take 5 hours of staring at the machine and saying, it's not super easy to do. Maybe, I don't know, maybe anyone can do it if they devote the time to it. That's the nice part.
Totally agree. Where do you think, because obviously now these LLMs have voice mode as well. Gemini has voice mode on my phone, etc. Where do you think this goes in terms of, so let's relate it back to your industry, performance marketing. Do you think that Meta ever figures out a way to incorporate good enough technology into their own ad platform to where it can just do everything for you in an automated way that's good?
So I chafe at performance marketing. I'm not being critical of you. I know it's on my website, which we have to revise. I remember sitting at Google like 2 years ago and sitting next to some guys at a presentation who were saying, they were leaning to talk to the guy from Google. They're like, can't believe what you're doing. Don't you see the value in our agency? You're going to destroy our uniqueness to how we set up our campaigns. And I pulled the guy aside. I was like, they don't care.
Yeah.
Like Google is, whether it's monopoly or not, it functions like one. They're like the largest media company in the history of mankind. They don't care about your 5-person agency and its clever widget for setting up ad campaigns. Are you crazy? Find a different job. So do I think that people like that who are trying to be the best button pushers in Google or Meta are going to be out of a job? I 100% do.
Yep.
Do I think that Meta will be able to? I think that Meta and Google both today are better than ever. If you're a small business and you're not sophisticated at digital marketing, but you know your own product well, are better at getting you live. I think if you were, I'm going to say this without any hot sauce. If I'm a fantastic optometrist in Westchester County, New York, and I know my business and I'm a smart person, I think it's easier than ever for me to create an advertising campaign on Google or Meta with my limited tech skills. I think that's true. I think it's harder than ever to run enterprise level campaigns for clients because Google and Meta are trying to force you into systems that make them the most money and not you, which they've always done. And so you need to know how to game the system better than ever and to play with it. It is true that Google has moved towards broader match types and away from exact match types. And if you ask Google, that's a good idea. And then you say, but hold on, before you eliminated exact matches, my CPCs were 30% lower and my click-through rate was 20% higher. That was bad for me. Good for someone who doesn't know what they're doing and wants to just launch a campaign, launch broad key terms, podiatrist, shoes, sore feet. in Westchester County and let the robot figure it out. But it's not really good if you're a good advertiser and you want to get specific with things. Do I think it'll get better? I do, but I think they're always in their own self-interest. So I still think there's a place for agencies. It's changed. But so like Manus, we're talking about Manus. My exposure to Manus is in Meta.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. It is better than the average junior account manager at analyzing data trends.
Yep.
It is faster. It is, in my experience, more foolproof. It does not complain when you ask it to work late.
Yes.
However, its answer is always do more meta advertising. That's always its answer. There's no circumstance which would suggest anything other than doing more meta. And that's, of course, that's the answer that Meta's AI tool is going to give you.
Yes.
So I think, so do I think it's easier than ever to launch things? Yes. Do I think clients think they could do it without me more than ever? Yes. Do I think that's not really true? Yeah, I don't think it's true. I think the skill sets that needed to succeed in this space have changed, and the doing is less important.
Couldn't have said it better. So if you look out over the next 6, 12, 18 months, what is important for you to nail as an agency, do you think, to stay relevant to your customers?
We saw this AI stuff coming a few years ago and realized that the lever pulling of Google and Meta and Trade Desk and Mountain and whatever platforms is going to get more democratized. We said, all right, we have to become a creative first agency, and it's going to be hard to do over the course of time. And we can't do it overnight because our clients are going to reject it. They're not going to get it.
Yep.
But that is the driver of success in Meta right now. Their engineers are openly talking about this in blogs. They're saying things like, it's great that you want to talk about your audiences. We'll do all that for you. Here's how our creative works. They're openly talking about how creative is what drives success in Meta advertising. And clients don't hear that or know that. So what I think I have to nail, and I'm working on it literally 15 hours a day, 7 days a week for the last month. We're close to the first beta launch. What I have to nail is a dashboard that illustrates to clients how important creative is at different parts of their journey and lets them understand, this is a very Brooke specific answer, and lets them know in a non-judgmental way, I know you think you've got a lot of creative. Let's be honest. It's really the same blue square with a different talking head 9 times. It's not different creative. And if I can get them to realize that, they'll realize my value. They'll realize their own, how they need help. It'll be good advice for them, and we'll be able to drive more success for them. So I really have to nail that, because there's still clients who feel like we still get on calls with clients who say, I'd like to target Equinox gym members. That's a gym in the Northeast. I'd like to 2 gyms in the Northeast, Equinox and Lifetime Fitness. I'd like they're both like $300 a month gym clubs in New York City. I'd like to target Equinox users differently than Lifetime users. What's our strategy? There's no strategy. They're the same audience.
Yes.
But clients still want to talk about that level of audience specificity. So we need to coach them out of that, honestly, if they want to be successful.
And look, the reality is, as I see it, every single business that I've been exposed to over my career has wanted to get rid of agencies. Like every single one of them has wanted to either at some point bring it in-house, bring parts of it in-house, wanting to do more in-house and outsource less to you, try a different agency to you because they think that the grass is always greener and this other agency, it talks a good game and it feels like I'll get better ROI at it. So this whole death of agencies has been talked about since I worked in agency land.
Oh, God, we've been talking about the death of cookies for 25 years. Yes, everyone talks about the death of cookies and the death of agencies because they're both still here.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think shitty agencies will die. I think a lot of shitty agencies will die. But that has been happening since time immemorial. Shitty agencies have been going by the wayside. AI is only accelerating that. It's accelerating the death of shitty agencies. It's accelerating the death of shitty consultancies. It's like basically anybody who's not good at their job and not good at communicating value and not good at having a personality and not good at bringing their humanity daily to what they do and the value that they provide and being able to have a real relationship with the other human on the other side of the desk or on the other side of the phone call, like those people have always been shitty and they've always been at risk of losing their job or losing their business. And so I think that hasn't changed. If anything, it's exacerbated that. And it means that the parts of what I do that can be commoditized should be. That's genuinely how I feel.
I mostly agree with you. We talked about this earlier. It goes back to what are young people going to do how are young people going to learn their trade? I've been saying we call it swapping and pacing. Swapping ads because there's no thought about the ad. Yeah. We're not thinking why we're swapping the ad. Let's try a new ad.
Yes.
If you're just swapping ads and you're pacing, meaning I want this campaign to spend $100 this month. It's on pace to spend $105. Let me adjust the pacing till I get closer to 100. If you think that you're doing a good job by swapping and pacing, you're going to be out of a job. That is 100% going to be taken over by robots. At some point soon, you're going to say to Meta, please exchange all the files in the existing asset library with all the new ones that are linked over here in this Dropbox, and let me proof them before they go live for spelling mistakes. Thank you. That's 1,000% going to be a voice prompt in the next 3 years, right?
Yes.
Meta's going to build in. And so I worry about that because that is a job that people do. People are paid. There's a lot of people I know personally that are paid to swap and paste and don't necessarily, maybe aren't ready for the next part of it, where what they could be doing is driving strategy and growth ideas for their clients, but they're so fixated on being the best swappers and pacers that they're not going to grow. So I worry about that stuff.
Yeah, I do too. Look, I'm being, maybe it sounds a little bit flippant because of the luxurious position that you and I have built for ourselves. So yes, there is some arrogance there, perhaps, but I think humans are infinitely adaptable, and we've been able to survive all of the upheavals up till now. And I think we'll survive this too. I think there's going to be, I wouldn't say a lost generation, but there's going to be that middle generation in this transition that is going to feel like they slipped through the cracks, and they're going to go, shit, what's left for me out there? Okay, cool. Now we've got kiosks at McDonald's, so I can't have my first job working at McDonald's. We've got robo mowers and robo vacuum cleaners, and so I can't mow my neighbor's lawns anymore because that's been automated away.
I clean my neighbor's pools, and I did work at McDonald's. Yes.
Yeah, and I did gardening for many years. I worked at a car wash for many years. Like my first couple of jobs were manual labor, go out there and earn a crust. And so those jobs most likely are going to go away too. But I think there will be new types of entry-level roles that will emerge. I don't know exactly what those look like yet.
Look, here's the best case scenario. I live in a small neighborhood in Brooklyn. There's no high rises yet. They're coming soon. And it's cobblestone streets. A best case scenario is that these technologies and the economy created by these technologies, I'm not Emperor Musk like level of no one's going to work again.
Yes.
But like best case scenario is there's some freedom of escape from as many hours of work. The people that work the most are still going to make the most money, but there's some less need to do that. There'll probably be some universal basic income. And then money goes back into the community in the form of people starting small businesses like sandwich shops and cool delis and tattoo parlors and bicycle shops. And all of a sudden we have the ability to have small businesses survive in small neighborhoods to survive. That to me is like a best case scenario of technology wiping out jobs, is people can go do those things because they no longer need to compete in like their buddy who works at Google. I don't know.
Yeah.
Look, we got all philosophical today.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. If you could sprinkle fairy dust on our industry and change one thing about it at the snap of your fingers, what would it be?
I'd make clients pay more upfront and less in the subsequent months.
Love it. Wow, that's so profound. I like it. I really like that. What's the best way to get a hold of you? If people want to, I'll drop a link to your LinkedIn profile and your website in the show notes. Other than that, how do you like people to reach out to you now?
Anyone who goes to LinkedIn and looks up Brooke Shepard will find me, or you go to our website, masoninteractive.com, one word. I will get any form that anyone fills out on there.
I love it. As we start to wrap things up, now is where I get to flip the script and hand the microphone over to you. Let you ask me one question, any question you like. Could be personal or professional. Brooke Shepard, Mason Interactive, what is your question for me today?
My question for you, Sir Jason of Mexico, is you are from California, you told me. You said in this conversation that you lived in New Zealand.
28 years.
And now you live in Mexico.
Correct. Since 2023.
And your shirt says Brooklyn Heights, New York, which is the next neighborhood over. Is that a personal shirt because you visited there, or is it just something you found?
Yeah, I found it in a store and I liked the design of it so much. And I have so few white, almost all of my t-shirts are black in my wardrobe. And I live in shorts and a t-shirt here in Mexico most days. And I had almost no white t-shirt. So when I saw this t-shirt and I liked the style, I liked the design, and it was black on white instead of white on black, I was like, I got to have that t-shirt.
Very cool.
So that's how we got to be here. Listen, my friend, fabulous conversation. I love it when it goes down a philosophical rabbit hole, which we did. We went down through a few, but I think it's important, right? I think it's important occasionally to have these deeper conversations and these thought exercises about where the world is headed. And I tell you, it was really profound. You mentioned Musk before. When I started to think about both the upside and the downside of AI really deeply, And I heard Musk talking, this is going back probably at least 10 years ago, he was being interviewed, and he said, look, AI that was before AI went mainstream. He said, because of course he started OpenAI, and that's legally being disputed right now. He said, look, we in the AI space, what this is going to create for society is the ant conundrum. And he said, this is the ant conundrum in a nutshell. When we build a superhighway today, 100 miles of superhighway, 6 lanes wide, whatever it is, we might kill a billion ants or a trillion ants, okay? We don't kill a billion ants because we hate ants and we want to eliminate ants from the earth. We kill a billion ants because we want to build a damn highway, right?
Yeah.
And so he said, that's the challenge we face with AI, because AI is going to start developing its own agendas, its own goals. And a lot of those goals and a lot of those agendas and a lot of those ideas of being able to operate independent of us and independent of our oversight are going to be incompatible with human life. And it's not because the AI is intentionally going to wipe out humanity. It's because it wants to do something that is incompatible with us being alive. That is the ant conundrum, and I couldn't agree with him more in that scenario. So that's why I think Skynet and all that sort of stuff, like, that was intentional. But I think we have to worry more about the unintentional stuff, which is incompatible with us continuing to live. It's that stuff that is the bigger concern to me.
Yeah. My place in Brooklyn, there was the Terminex guy came by this morning because last night we had a bunch of ants outside, literally ants last night, and they're in our house and we're killing them all because I don't want them in my pantry.
Yes.
And it's not because I hate ants. It's because I like to eat more than I like to have ants eating my food.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right. At some point, let's stop. It's too much. It's too much. The ant conundrum is too much.
Yes. I love it. I love it. Listen, fabulous conversation. You're a super cool dude. You got a lot of experience. You got a lot of wisdom that comes from not only running businesses, but from life itself. And I really appreciate you sharing that with me today and time with me today and my audience. Super cool. Can't wait to speak to you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
If you'd like to get mentored by Jason for free, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason.